Welcome back to the X-Files. This time we're taking a look at Shonen Jump at its most brutal, a magazine often renowned for its quick cancellations, though many don't fully realize how true that sometimes is. Today we look at a series that barely had enough time to begin in the first place, so how will it fare? Let's boot up this file. Full name, Demon's Plan. Created by Yoshimichi Okamoto. Start date, November 21st, 2016. End date, February 20th, 2017. Total chapters, 12. Yoshimichi Okamoto would begin their manga career in 2012, seeing their one-shot Nigashiya be serialized in Jump Next's 2012 summer issue, with it later appearing again in Weekly Shonen Jump's 28th issue of 2013. Nigashiya, which translates to something like the fugitive or the escapist, would appropriately be about someone fleeing in both versions, with some elements being changed around from the Next and regular magazine version. A year later, as part of the 2014's Golden Future Cup, a usually yearly one-shot competition held within Weekly Shonen Jump, which I've covered in multiple other videos before, Okamoto would be an entrant with Brainbreaker, though it wouldn't win the competition, with Devilly Man winning instead and getting serialized. Brainbreaker would be a battle manga focusing on a student who struggles with his academics, but when he comes across one Dr. Gorvine, he's taught that humanity can only use 3% of his brain, and by unlocking it they can increase various things, including combat prowess. It seems like a silly and lighthearted setup for action shenanigans, which tracks considering what their next manga would be about. And with just a few public one-shots published, Okamoto would get his first and only serialization greenlit, Demon's Plan, beginning in issue 51 of Shonen Jump in 2016. So let's see how all of that unfolded. Demon's Plan begins by introducing us to Bolo and Carlos, two friends who will always have each other's back. Together they've clawed their way from the grips of poverty, both orphans whose seemingly sole motivator in life is each other, as well as something called the Demon's Plan, a magical artifact that is said to sometimes choose someone to grant their wish. Currently it's in possession of a nobleman in town, and ever since first finding out about it, the two have saved up money to get their wish granted. Things quickly take a turn for the worse though when the local authorities pin a recent theft on the duo and attempt to seize all their wealth. Though Carlos puts up a front and ends up getting imprisoned in order to safeguard the money he and Bolo saved up together, at the cost of him being set to be executed for his supposed crimes. There's some genuine sweetness to the two's relationship, some expressions or scenes involving them convey that they both care about each other very much, and in Carlos's case he's willing to put everything on the line for Bolo. In reality, both were saved by each other, both desperate, starving children when they first met, and there's something there I find quite interesting, a spark of something special that Demon's Plan possesses. Bolo rushes onward to save his dearest friend. All the money and wishes in the world presumably aren't worth his death, and it's revealed that the location where Carlos was being imprisoned has been decimated, ripped to shreds, corpses are strewn about everywhere. Carlos is alive though, accompanied by a masked stranger, Patron, who possesses the real Demon's Plan. The one possessed by the noble mentioned earlier being a fake, used to swindle anyone foolish enough to wish upon it out of money. Hearing this, Carlos exploded into a bitter rage, and in this moment of vitriol, his desires running rampant with the want to strike back coursing through his veins, he's presented with a Faustian bargain, which he takes. A contract with the Demon's Plan, granting him the power of the Blood Mist Wings. He uses this to raise those who have harmed him and Carlos, and extends a hand to his dearest friend. He wants to take out those who would exploit the weak and powerless and write a new and happy ending for him and Bolo, stating that this time he'd protect him instead. This is all a pretty fun setup, including what happens next with Bolo rejecting this offer vehemently, though it swerves from being somewhat compelling to quite edgy and immature. The only thing seemingly holding Bolo back is some kind of morality that we shouldn't mindlessly kill people. Perhaps he's not privy to how the two had been swindled, though these people were going to execute Carlos. They framed the two boys in order to acquire wealth. They stole from countless people through their fake Demon's Plan scheme as well. Bolo at this point embodies a very shaky foundation of what is right, I feel, though this is mixed in with something else. the series kind of pivots focus to it being more about Bolo wanting to protect Carlos, to protect him from a dangerous and lonely path, which leads to him beating on his friend as the demon plan grants him his power, the power to protect, the Crimson Bell, an ability that utilizes his own blood, coating himself in red armor in order to protect others. Should the series have lasted longer, I do feel that the idea of self-sacrifice would be explored, as well as its role in relationships. Both Bolo and Carlos go above and beyond to do things for each other, though most of these actions are never done in unison. Shedding your own blood to protect others is also pretty damn cool as an ability. At this point, Patron then teleports away with Carlos in tow when Bolo screams in a guttural animalistic tantrum, marking the series' goal to get his friend back, both literally and figuratively, from this dark path he may walk. This is unfortunately the most interesting Demon's Plan ever is for me. It's founded on some rather broken and shaky ideals and a ton of angst and edge, and partially I say this in a mocking way, but it can be a lot of fun too at times, and Bolo and Carlos are established well enough. With what's presented, I feel you can get behind Bolo wanting to reunite or save his friend, despite his self-righteous attitude. The series' relationship with money is established at the very beginning too, and with this are ideas of poverty and class dynamics. It's all very on the nose though, with the series spelling out that the rich live in fancy excess above those who are poor in an aptly named town called Dumping Town. We're never privy to its inner workings, but seeing that at least 2 children were dumped here and were on the brink of ending it all until they met each other, things don't look too good. There's also the wealthy that just swindle the poor, corrupt authorities. It compounds into being a rather cartoonish example of wealth disparity, though it does give Carlos a really good reason, I feel, to massacre the bourgeois. What I do like about this element of Demon's Plan is how it tackles the idea of material wealth, albeit briefly. The money Carlos and Bolo raise is something Bolo just gives away to his boss in the end. He packs up anything useful and takes the sign the two friends made together, a single sentimental item that ties the two. This is his prized possession. As simple as it is, Demon's Plan is trying to convey something here, that our bonds and relationships mean a whole lot more than money, which is a message I can get behind. Carlos's earlier stint with him giving up himself to save the money partially feels as though he's helping Bolo out. He doesn't want all their struggle to be in vain, but he's still focusing on keeping that material wealth. He could have given it up and the two could still be together, though there is still a clear evil in this situation, which isn't either of them. The idea of material is tackled in the next act too, specifically in its antagonist who has the power to collect. They can store any number of items in a subspace, which they can pull out for later use, and I feel this focus on hoarding items adds a little to this idea Demon's Plan was briefly exploring, though overall it could just be exploring different kinds of temptations rather than just the idea of material temptation overall. On the subject of antagonists, as soon as Patron leaves with Carlos in chapter 1, he actually comes right back in the next chapter just to exposition dump on us on what's going on. The Demon's Plan is actually a tournament. It features 108 total demons, people who have had their wish granted, though it comes at the cost of them being immortal, unable to die nor age unless another demon kills them, and when one demon is left, they will get their wish granted. The 108 number I find a little fascinating since it has strong ties to various religions, notably Buddhism I think, with that number often being representative of 108 things you might need to overcome, like temptations. It's unknown how many total demons are active, some could already be dead, more demons could appear potentially, though it seems Bolo was the last one since the Demon's Plan crumbled after he obtained his Crimson Bell. This is a pretty fun, simple idea, a big demon battle royale, each with special powers, and everyone having unique motivations or wishes. Unfortunately, Demon's Plan never frames this very well, focusing on Bolo rushing around to find Carlos and stumbling into enemies like the collectionist Veronica Strelitzia. This fight illuminates a few things about Demon's Plan. For one, it's very edgy, the expressions the characters make, the way they shout and scream and also curse, though that's probably due to the fanscans at the time, loving to shove a fuck into wherever they can. I also feel like Veronica's ability clues us into the world being rather ill-defined. There's no one period I can attribute it to. People live in squalor, in some cases they mention feudal lords, though the trappings and designs make me think it's some kind of post-industrial society, though modern looking things sometimes crop up, like this anti-tank gun. It's all very vaguely European, and I feel not very well thought out. The other thing Demon's Plan loves to do is show you sad backstories for everyone. Veronica gets one briefly, and so does this character, who straight up just appears to the main character in the hotel room after this fight. They exposit about events, and we jump straight into a chapter-long flashback. It's just like an NPC out of a Bethesda, Fallout, or Elder Scrolls game.
Don't suppose you'd care to trade? I'm missing a few essentials and... screw this.
They exposit about events and we jump straight into a chapter-long flashback. Also, Salvia exists as the token female character, an informant Bolo went to help find Carlos, though she really isn't important at all, bar her brother being involved in the Demon's Plan Battle Royale, who we never get to see. At this point, we're halfway through the series when Eustace, or Lack, he uses a fake name at one point, shows up, and he takes over the story. A character we have not met nor care for, who just gives us his backstory, hijacks everything, and takes us to the village where his sister resides to fight another Demon's Plan user called Rovleon Billy, who once massacred the village Eustace lived in, and also took young girls as offerings to sexually abuse, which of course Demon's Plan handles with as little grace as possible, giving us the priceless reaction, "Besides, she's just going to be raped. It's not like she's going to die, right?" Huh? At this point, things go from an endearing level of cringe edge to one that's painfully misguided and gross. The villains Demon's Plan establishes are usually shown to be horrendous people. There's a strong reason to beat them. The series makes a point of never being too violent though, as Bolo manages to defeat Rovleon Billy and uses his Crimson Bell to attach him to the ground forever. It's such a weak workaround to not killing someone, and it hasn't been established as an ability he used prior really, though the whole idea of violence and not killing in a death game isn't tackled in much depth anyway. And after this, the manga just shortly ends, though not before giving us one final exposition dump of what would have been to come. The Demon's Plan scheme has some more layers to it, with Carlos taking out a high-ranking member of a certain group called Dogma. This group is comprised of the 10 strongest demons and has an odd structure where there's groups within this group, a party who want the Demon's Plan to run its course, one that wants to stop the violence, and a neutral party. Too bad the manga wasn't about this, since it actually sounds somewhat interesting, and instead we spent half of it focused on this frankly quite boring side quest. So anticlimactically, Demon's Plan just fades out. It's not even a particularly fun "our adventure continues" kind of ending, though I don't blame it, having only had 12 chapters. It's one of the most brutal cancellations of its time. Still, I need to discuss it and what it does, however limited that might be. I don't want to relentlessly pound on Demon's Plan, so is there any value in it? Is there something interesting or enriching here? Or is this a piece of media that is just unnoteworthy? Well, as I mentioned earlier, there was something in the relationship between Bolo and Carlos. Genuine emotion is expressed. I think some of the faces the two make in the initial chapter struck a chord with me, and should the series have focused more on them, I can see it being an interesting relationship, friends to enemies with opposing views. Sadly though, those views are never properly established, and we quickly move on to other characters which aren't as interesting or fleshed out. Furthermore, a battle royale full of immortal demons spanning the world is a really cool concept. It's simple but fun, and with the right framing and build-up, this is an idea I can see people flocking behind. Anyone? No, nobody? Yeah, well, it wasn't that good, so I kind of understand. There is a lot wrong with Demon's Plan. I've highlighted a lot of it here and there, but foundationally it feels strained. It's copying beats from other series without much care. Like, why do we need this arc with Eustace? What does it tell us or convey to us about the world and its characters or themes? Bolo doesn't really get expanded on as a character here, and the new ones don't really either. They're all cut and dry, basic, good or bad. It feels as though Okamoto wanted an arc to buffer bigger world events, but there's no real reason to care about any of this. I think Salvia also illustrates this problem too, as she just exists to exposit and to be a meat sack. There's hints of personality to her, but beyond her being a kind of mean girl with heels, there's nothing there. This has me circling back to it only being 12 chapters though. Things do need time to develop, but after 12 chapters I am left feeling like Demon's Plan squandered a lot of that time, focusing on reiterating info we already know, throwing us into pretty mindless fights, or introducing new characters in clumsy ways. I try to find something in every ACT series I cover, some resonant beat, a character or idea, but this time mostly what stands out is how this falls short. Demon's Plan feels like a collection of ideas, ill thought out, and ultimately, they don't really come together to make a compelling story. But why then was this cut so short? Other than it not being very compelling and the issues I've discussed, was there any other reason? Looking at the magazine at the time of it ending might help illuminate things or give extra context. Debuting at the tail end of 2016 in its final issue, it would be joined by Ole Golazo, a football manga I've covered prior. It wouldn't last long though, as shortly into the year we would get the dreaded 6th batch of 2017. Jump at this point in time was going through a period of great change with an exodus of its biggest series. Kochikame had just ended after 40 years, Nisekoi had finished a few months prior, as well as Bleach. Toriko would end in the issue Demon's Plan debuted in, and World Trigger would go on an extended multi-year hiatus around this time too. Usually this would give new series some leverage, but instead Jump chose to do something different. It decided to do something brutal. It would leverage some of these gaps and the fact that they've just lost many hit series to debut a batch of 6 new manga. Usually you'd see batches of 3 to 4 at most in any given year, but 6 is big and doesn't happen at all really. So the hope was this might help put some new eyes on the magazine. Straighten Up, Amalgam of Distortion, Demon's Plan, and Ole Golazo would make way for these 6 new manga. I feel I've been pretty charitable to Demon's Plan and have managed to illuminate a few little highlights that it possesses, though can others see something I've missed, or is the general consensus that Demon's Plan isn't very good? Let's check out some messages sent in by the X-Files office's Discord. Firstly, there were many comments critiquing the series. Cerulean found it poorly made and forgettable, highlighting its use of stock archetypes of characters that are full of cheap motivations and emotional backstories. They also found the world ill-defined and felt it squandered its exploration of topics like wealth disparity. Many of these issues can be found in many other reviews too, with the general consensus being that it wasn't the worst thing ever, nor good by any means. Bland, generic, edgy, formulaic, mediocre, or lacking in depth are all things that have been used to describe it. For brevity's sake, I won't bring up every single review that brought this takeaway up, but there were a lot of reviews that said similar things to these. Joni found the pacing to be very poor, it being simultaneously slow and very fast, citing the introduction to its world and characters being too quick, and the latter half focused on Ravelli and Billy to be agonizingly slow. A potential reasoning being it chasing quick and easy but unearned emotional payoffs to situations. There is a focus in this review on highlighting that things just kind of happen, ideas exist but are not explored in any meaningful or interesting ways. The initial fake Demon's Plan reveal at the start is brought up here too, being pretty emblematic of the series' storytelling approach I feel, taking the quick and easy example of healing a disabled person who was stuck in a wheelchair. It's not compelling, it's vaguely offensive, and frankly it's cheap. That kind of describes Demon's Plan to a T, to be honest. Jesus Flash asserts that the core concept of Demon's Plan's Battle Royale and the idea of demons bound to immortality by their desires has a lot you can work with, including Bolo being a demon for the sake of others, though sadly it does nothing interesting with these concepts, and Jesus Flash cites it as rote, underdeveloped, and holier than thou in its approach with Bolo. Bolo's motivation and morals are just used as a device to make Bolo seem good and righteous, but it's also used as a way to tie this whole plot together, otherwise it would probably just fall apart. To bounce off of this though, Koshek in their review brings up the idea that Bolo being a pacifist in a death game might considerably hamper the story. It could work potentially, but it is an especially poor fit that heavily restricts the series' storytelling and leads to awkward moments, like with how Ravelli and Billy is incapacitated. Elements like this just add to how ill-conceived the whole thing feels. And on that notion, Melons decides to poke some holes in the actual game of Demon's Plan, showing that it's not very well realized. Should there have been more rules or a greater focus on exploring the game, perhaps that concept could have solidified the story a bit more, though I don't feel it's entirely necessary to define things as Merlins wrote out. The game can be fantastical, infuriating, and borderline unfair. It is a demonic game that preys on human desires, and everyone engaged is immortal, so time isn't an issue. It feels more like a prank than anything done by a higher being, so I'm willing to give it a bit of grace on this front, though it still doesn't excuse it for being poorly thought out. There were, to my surprise, a fair few people who didn't hate or even enjoy the series, like Wildheart Razorfangs, who didn't find it as bad as most others, with them finding some enjoyment in the art or emotional resolutions. Violent also brings this up in their review, stating that Bolo leaving Dumping Town and Veronica Spread with all the guns were high points for them, leading to them feeling it shouldn't have been axed so quickly. Kinky brought up the series hooking them too, despite its weaker start, enjoying its cast and action set pieces. TG conversely enjoyed the first chapter, citing it as immediately gripping, though post this it did struggle for them. Even so, to them it was still a fun battle series where they liked the art and Bolo as its protagonist. So all in all, a few people did enjoy for similar or differing reasons. And finally we have Chima, who in their review feels similarly to many others in that it's very by the books and they neither hated nor enjoyed it, though I do want to focus on a part of their review where they brought up its scanlation. While it did have errors here and there which diminished the experience, they do bring up the nostalgia behind scanned manga and how special it would be when a new Jump manga was translated, since now we just get everything done professionally. Before it was a little treat. The professionally done scanlations are by far the most preferable outcome, but it is nice to take a step back and gaze at where we came from. Little snippets of internet history can be observed through old scans like this, which is very neat. I feel that might make up for a good summation of positives you can garner from Demon's Plan 2. Largely it's unnoteworthy, it has a myriad of small issues which plague it, but it is also a short little curio of this period of Jump. In a rather sad turn of events post Demon's Plan, Okamoto hasn't done much of anything, disappearing post Demon's Plan's release. There is a rumour that he may be the artist behind Jump Plus's Ban-O. The evidence for this is frankly quite laughable from what I've seen, like the dust particles looking similar. I kinda get people thinking it looks a little similar, but for stuff like this, as always, take it with a pinch of salt. If it is Okamoto, then it's cool he's still going on and making stuff, and if it's not him, then it's just not him. And that covers Demon's Plan, a brisk series that unfortunately didn't get much time to tell its story, but remains rather unremarkable even in spite of that. Have you read Demon's Plan? Do you think some of its ideas, like the Demon Battle Royale, are interesting? Are there any other cancelled Jump manga you'd like to see me cover? Feel free to let me know and chat about it in the comments below. If you'd like more videos like this on Axe Manga, please like the video and subscribe for more. I have a whole playlist full of past Axe files on old and new Jump manga, with me recently stepping outside the bounds of Weekly Shonen Jump for the first time too, covering Trigun's initial run and early history, which deals with a similar battle royale setup coupled with a pacifist protagonist in a much more elegant fashion, I feel. The channel is also full of other videos on manga, including my History of Shonen Jump series, where I go back in time and delve into Shonen Jump's past. A huge thanks also goes out to the many patrons who make this video possible. If you'd like to join them or help out the channel, you can for as little as $1 a month, where you'll get access to a collection of bonus videos and polls, which sometimes decide what manga I cover in this format. You'll also get thanked at the end of my videos too, and if you pledge at the $3 tier or higher, you'll also get your own little doodle like the following amazing people. Thank you, Trinity, Jade, Kaizoku Gairu, Soroquil Zero, Holly the Apothecary, Mayu, It's Faco, Yellowtail, Lay Sloggett, Chris P. Bacon, Cho Henshin, Full Metal, Unquestionable, Yuzakura Psycho, Wurzel, Violent, Cactus, Joni, City Name E, Vino Burrito, Caffeine Dad, Cryonaut, Crash, 41IZ, Hong, Jamie Reynolds, Manu, Pokey Emblem, James Miller, Joba Monkey, Just a Virus, Star Sphinx, PK Broly, Fenrir Black, Elijah Espinoza, Neo Humanoid, Mark Nielsen, Electra Pirate, Jay Vasso, Three Frogs in a Trenchcoat, Sir Flash, Gay Shark, Slimy Okra, Giddista, Wavy Sky, TG Talks Manga, John Jerry 722, Andrew, Zenomat, Missile, Tara Elizabeth, Stratomega 13, Dennis Tambik, Jubei, Lise, Frogdude, Back on Earth, Yestin Maikage, Papa Eon, Hilltop, Vako Draws, Otaku Gamer X, Deadpan, Shy Monkeys, Jonathan Dragonet, John Sanford, Color, Jaime, Strawberry Proshone, Vaz, Palette, Ruiner, Juice, Chrominox, Eric Gorski, Mr. Shira, Grizz Exploder, Dextora, Ennio Showo, Cheese, Emmy, Benjamin, Tenmaku Lover, Taifumi Studios, Ignate, Iliades, and Gyros. Thank you all so much for being patrons, and as always, thank you so much for watching. Remember to be kind and take care.